The most fantastic example that we've seen is this comparison between, some of these left-wing obituaries to Rush Limbaugh and rude remarks about Rush Limbaugh compared with, a Washington Post obituary from 2 years ago now, or 2 years ago now almost, of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a former ISIS and, Al-Qaeda terrorist who is described as an austere religious scholar.
Well, Andrew, I'm going to one-up you on that because there is someone that they have treated with even more reverence.
Oh, no.
And we actually have a picture of it that we're going to pull up right now. Mao Zedong, one of the greatest mass murdering communist leaders in all of history. The New York Times said he began as an obscure peasant and died one of history's great revolutionary figures. Mao Zedong killed anywhere from 80 to 100 million people due to his communist policies and how he treated his people. So that just kind of shows you that when it comes to American conservatives, the left is fully willing to call us the most evil and despicable, vile filth imaginable. But when it comes to other cultures where they are actually murdering each other, that's just what they do over there. And, another example of this we saw was at the recent town hall event that Joe Biden had, where when asked about the cultural genocide going on in China right now, for those of you that don't know, the Chinese government is rounding up the Uyghur population. It's a minority group in the Xinjiang region. They have, it's mostly Muslim and they're an ethnic minority in China. They're rounding those people up, putting them into camps, forcing sterilization upon them, forcing them to have abortions. Their population is mysteriously declining, so there's some that are saying they may in fact be murdering large numbers of them. We don't know that, but all the other reports indicate that there is a genocide going on in China. So Joe Biden was asked about this, and he said, well, I'm not going to really come out against that. Because different countries, they just have different cultural norms. Yeah. And this Babylon Bee, who does a lot of satire, they came out with an article, a satirical article, basically saying that Joe Biden said, well, Nazi Germany, different culture,
Oh, goodness. The sad thing is that I can almost hear him saying that.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, look, we don't know how many people are actually being killed, but it is a cultural genocide going on in China. They are making sure that population disappears and grows smaller and isn't able to reproduce. So what this all speaks to is cultural relativism. So, and what that means basically is that the left doesn't judge other cultures by the morals that we have. They say, oh, well, they have their own morals and they are equal to ours and we should just accept them for who they are. And that sort of nonsense leads to the accepting of all sorts of evils like we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But there's just a small wrinkle with the left's version of cultural relativism, all right? All cultures are equal, except for American culture,
of course.
Except for Christian culture, except for conservative culture.
Yeah.
If you believe that it is actually wrong to murder someone, it's actually wrong to steal and lie, well, no, that culture sucks. Yeah. But if you're genociding an entire race of people, I mean, what are you going to do? It's different.
Cultural norm.
It's a different culture. So where do you think this push of cultural relativism, we're seeing it with the president of the United States. Where do you think this can lead us to? It's a big question.
I feel like we have to have, maybe I'm just wishfully thinking here, I feel like we have to have hit the end of it, because this is definitely something where we heard about it over the last 2 decades. We've heard whispers of this concept, the death of objective truth, the death of, actual values being objectively good and moral and upright. That's faded away over the last, century or so. Right. And, with some of these, you talk about different scholars that came from, the fall of Nazi Germany, from the fall of the Soviet Union, and a lot of these philosophical thinkers. I think we've come to the end of it when we start to see that the American people are being told that a genocide overseas, potentially one of the worst since the Nazis, at the very least one of the worst since the rise of Pol Pot in Cambodia. We're talking about the American people being bold-faced lied to. And it's part of this idea that there is global accountability measures in place. There's a United Nations that's supposed to hold nations accountable. The only nations that ever get held accountable, of course, are the nations that accept that accountability. Places like the United States. And I think that's what you're seeing is that all of these structures and all of these philosophical ideas make good on the fact that in the Western culture, there are those objective morals. We are built on an objective society and an objective truth. As a result, we have to be able to look back and say, oh, well, the genocide of the indigenous populations in the United States, or what is now the United States, is terrible. The Trail of Tears, terrible.
Yes.
We have to look back on that history of slavery and say, that's awful.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
And the left manipulates that to sow division in, our culture and in our political system. And you'd like to believe, and I'd like to believe from the data that we've seen in recent years, particularly among the electorate and in kind of the push with Donald Trump, was that we've seen the electorate wake up to the fact that this nonsense is being pushed on their children at school. It is being pushed in their workplaces. You've covered a ton of it, Michael. I mean, it's unbelievable.